So today we got the top 10 loadouts currently within Warzone. This is something a lot of people have been asking for, even though there's been little to no change with the meta other than the broadside getting nerfed. What we can go ahead and see here is the first one we're going to go ahead and start off with the suppressed Hemlock. And this one's one of the ones that's been tried and true. It's kind of like the Kilo with the 45 round mag from Warzone 1. You can kind of see the build out there. We're kind of going with this build where we're going to have the tuning set to the way it is. You can kind of see we're kind of solving for recoil, but we also want a little bit of aim down sight speed, because you'll notice that when you put this combo on, it is a little bit slower. So if you want to speed it up, you would drop the Felder T50 and then put on the ammunition, which doesn't have that aim down sight penalty as this one has. So you can kind of swap that out. Use the aim op with the sockets, and we can kind of see how the tuning looks on those. Again, the close to far is always preference. And then we put on this recoil one just because it doesn't really have any downsides in terms of aim down sight, and we get a good amount of recoil control from it. And you'll see it right here with the fire range. You can see where it is a little bit slower, but this thing doesn't miss. Pretty much able to shoot straight. And if you need to shoot in the same spot, you almost don't even need to adjust your aim at all. And that's the first one, and that's kind of what we would combine. You don't really, it doesn't matter this secondary. You're buying this loadout with the assumption that you've already gotten your other close range gun from the buy station or something along those lines. And then that's kind of how a lot of these will be built out with the smoke grenade, Semtex, and this is the particular perk package. The fast hands is kind of the main one. You can go ahead and swap around high alert for ghost if you want overkill, because you want both weapons. We're going to get to those loadouts, but we're running double time and tracker. Not a lot of good options here. You could run like the EOD or battle hardened or something like that, but for the most part this one will give you a little bit more utility in terms of moving, and since the game is mainly about crouch walking, you're going to be a little bit faster while doing that. Then we have the Lochman sub, which has been kind of tried and true for a while. This one comes in two versions. You're either going to put on a 40 round mag or a 50. Use the 40 at first. It will feel a little bit better, but if you find too many engagements where you're getting gunned just because you ran out of bullets, you might want to swap to the 50 and just be prepared for a little bit slower aim down sight. This is kind of how we have it built out. We build it out kind of like this. The particular attachments we choose to allow for tuning like gun recoil control versus using a suppressor. Maybe that'll be the meta later on if you actually popped up on the minimap, but they veered away from standard Call of Duty formula to go ahead and kind of create their own version that doesn't necessarily appeal to kind of what you would expect certain attachments to do. So we got that there. We got the L38 Falcon. You can kind of see the tuning there. And then we use a laser. And there's a couple different lasers you can go with. This one's the one with all that visibility stuff. I would probably go with this one and then tune it for sprint to fire speed, since you're going to be a little bit closer and kind of balance that out. So you kind of stop there, and that's kind of how I would balance that out. And then we got the last attachment here that kind of goes like that. You can kind of see how this one goes. It will be a little bit faster. It's kind of just one of those things that you're going to control. And even the furthest ones are a little bit hard, but keep in mind that's a 50-meter target. In reality, you should be able to hit the second target with ease. And that's the main one you're really looking to focus on, because that is the 25-meter range. Planning on playing Ashika Island, you're going to want a throwing knife, just kind of thirst people, especially with the 40 round mag. If you go with the 50, it might be worth it to go ahead and go to the Semtex or something, a thermite, if you're trying to counter a riot shielder, because that is a very dominant play style within this version of Warzone, where a lot of players are rocking the riot shield because there's not a lot of mobility to outplay them. So they know that and they rock with it. We got the sock-in. This one's a little slower, and it doesn't really shine without fast hands because it does have a slower reload, but you could take on a lot of people with this thing. Has little to no recoil, but with being an LMG, some people will steer away from that. It will have max bullet velocity and very limited recoil because of the build we're running. If we wanted to go ahead and try and change some sliders, we could and kind of min-max that, but you can kind of see how this one's already has that aim down sight one, so we're not going to be adjusting that one. And then the high velocity, if you felt like you wanted a little bit more recoil control, you could go rear grip, but I think with this current build, this is kind of how you would have it built out. And you'll see this thing is pretty gross. It's slow, but it's gross. And you just kind of shoot in the same spot. And you don't even have to really work for it. And that's what's great about some of these meta guns is they're so easy to use. Literally anyone can pick it up, copy the class setup, and literally you're going to be able to shoot straight. And that's kind of how you have it built out there. Fast Hands is primarily the only mandatory perk I would recommend on this particular build. And again, like I said, you could swap out those other perks to match. Then we got the Vaznev, which is another close range option. I feel like the MP5 or the Lochman sub is a little bit more versatile in terms of being able to put more players down, but the mobility on this is better. So I kind of lean towards the Vaznev. Both you can rock iron sights, so you might have a preference on that. And you kind of see how this one lays out. Very similar build. Kind of have it set up like that with the laser, and this is that other laser, but we'll go ahead and swap that over to the other laser that is primarily for aim down sight, and then we can tune that for aim down sight and sprint to fire speed. There we go. And then we got the Aurazat, which is behind my head, but it is the Aurazat. You can kind of see that there. You need your screenshots for these tunings, so you'll be able to screenshot that anyways. And then we got the Demo X2 grip, which you can kind of see how that part works with the aim down sight. We're kind of solving for completely different stats than we are with the long range weapon. And that's kind of what we're doing there. And you can kind of see this one as you come up. Great on the first two targets. At the further one, not so much, unless you're tap firing and recentering, just because the lower bullet velocity and the little bit more recoil, because we're not solving for that, makes it a little bit trickier to hit those shots. But you can see these ones, little to no like work involved to actually control these ones, and that's kind of the main weapons there. Now, that is the majority of the meta. Everything else is a combination of these weapons. We got the Hemlock, which is just those two combined with Overkill. We got the Saknev, which is just those two combined with Overkill, and the exact same three all the way across. This is one of the biggest deficiencies with Warzone 2 is there's not a lot of weapon diversity. You use these 4 weapons, you're pretty much good to go. Every spectating randoms we've had has been a combination of these 4 weapons, primarily the Hemlock for almost all scenarios. Appreciate the support. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button. See you on the next one. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.